Welcome to the Bulldog broadcast. I'm your host, Dan Dickau, with three of my favorite guys. We kicked off the basketball season a year ago for Gonzaga Hoops, previewing the year. It's been so hard to get these three together because we've all got different things going. But we finally have an ability to have a season recap with our regional TV crew. My fellow analyst, Richard Fox, the play-by-play extraordinaire, Greg Heister, and producer Chauncey Jones. Guys, it's been too long since all of us have chopped it up a little bit, so thanks for joining. How are each of you doing? We'll start with Richard.
Can't complain. Happy for the long weekend. Looking forward to summer. Got some fun trips planned, but just, like you guys, grinding, and a lot of Zag news recently, which has been nice to see.
Yeah, we're going to get into that Zag news for sure because there's a lot of good stuff. Chauncey, life for you good?
Yeah, man, I'm blessed. This is crazy, man. First of all, this is a blessing that we can all come together and talk face to face outside of the season. So just excited to have these conversations with y'all. Let's get it going.
Yeah, and Greg, usually the four of us are text messaging to prepare for a Gonzaga game. I understand with your other broadcast roles and duties, you're about to call a baseball game in Pullman down at Washington State. How is that preparation different for you with Gonzaga basketball versus Washington State baseball? Two completely different things, I can imagine, in prep, right?
Yeah, it is. And so it's a Pac-12 network game. So it's the Apple Cup and Washington State UW. So you've got to be impartial and you've got to prepare equally for both teams. So there's a lot of players and a lot of history. And I just want to throw out there, I agree with Chauncey Jones. He is blessed.
Well,
he's really blessed.
We don't always, with the Bulldog broadcast, include backgrounds. A lot of it is audio podcast, but occasionally there's clips of video. Can you tell us a little bit more about this backdrop that you have on your Zoom? It looks like a bear is chasing you down from behind.
It is. That's a brown bear. I actually took that photograph at Katmai National Park. I was about 40 feet away from him when I snapped that photo. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, that's impressive. I remember last year, my family and I, we went to Yellowstone, and a bison walked about 5 feet by our car, our van. It was an incredible sight to see. I know you're an outdoorsman. And interested to hear some of your plans as we get going with this podcast chat. But Foxy, there's been a lot of impressive Gonzaga basketball news ever since the season ended. A historic season a year ago, unfortunately, didn't finish with the title. But when you look at what they've added since the end of the year, Drew Timme coming back, Chet Holmgren, the number one player in the country, signing, Hunter Salas, a McDonald's All-American level player, signing with Gonzaga, and then just recently Nolan Hickman, another 4-star, 5-star type point guard joining. Is this Gonzaga program not turning back and just continuing to stay at that level?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's what the last 5 or 6 years have just been different. We've talked about this before, and I don't, see any reason why this is slowing down in the immediate future. I think this recruiting class is indicative of that. I mean, I think Holmgren and Hickman both committed after Tommy left, or that at least that story was kind of taking shape. So, I think that's a positive development, just given how important Tommy was to recruiting for so long. That certainly gives people, I think, a good feeling that when it comes to recruiting, they're not likely to slow down. And they're going to be really active and selective in the transfer market. I think they did that with the Iowa State kid, is it Bolden?
Yeah.
So no, I mean it's at a different level, fellas. We've been lucky to kind of be right there to watch it, but I'm hard pressed to see how this thing slows down, at least anytime soon.
Yeah, it's impressive. It's fun. I know all of us are going to be excited to be a part of calling games next season, just the feel around McCarthy next year will be different because fans will be in the building. Chauncey, when you're out and about, in Spokane, obviously people recognize Richard being a 7-footer. They recognize Greg's deep voice of
Oh, the
calling
size of my
games.
head.
People don't know. What's that, Greg?
The size of my head, let's be honest.
Well, that too. But your hair looks nice. I don't know if I've ever seen it look that professional, maybe.
Oh, he knew what he was doing.
But Chauncey, you probably hear people's perception of Gonzaga's program a little bit differently than Richard and I, and maybe even Greg do. What are you hearing about the Gonzaga program from a fan's perception, or after this past season? Was there disappointment, or just excitement of what the program did and where they're moving to?
I think the biggest thing for me to change is because I get to hear both the haters and then the people who love them. Boy, the haters were finally quiet after this. Normally, after every season, I don't care what happens at the end, is, see, they shouldn't be in the WCC. See, that wouldn't have happened in this. It's like, man, but then after the Natty, of course, you still have your ones who are going to hate no matter what happens. They win a chip, there's going to be something to hate on, but they were quiet. They were quiet all during the tournament when they started seeing it, because it was magical. We're so far removed from it now, but that was a magical run. Aside from the game-winning half-court shot from Jalen, but it was just an exciting run. And that's the unfortunate thing, is we're so far removed. But again, it was silencing the haters. That was fun for them to just, you see it on Twitter and those places where it started dying down a little bit more. And then now, wow, now the expectations is there from it's championship, right? Like, you can't expect, okay, you can say Final Four because anything can happen in the Final Four. The expectations now going into this season next year, legit, like, okay, this should be Final Four.
Yeah, it's amazing to see that it is now Final Four expectations almost every year. Gonzaga's been there a couple times now. This roster build out, I would imagine they're the preseason number one and the favorite again. Greg, I understand, I think if I remember correctly, you were back at the Final Four, if I'm not mistaken. And if you were, what was that atmosphere like for you, Greg, watching that in person?
I wasn't, Dano. My parents actually came to Spokane. It's the first time I saw them in 18 months because of COVID. They got vaccinated, so we were able to hang out. So I actually watched the Final Four with my dad. So that was pretty special. I was back, at Butler for the Sweet 16 round, and so I can talk a little bit about that. It was just different. Everybody with masks and half the crowd. I think when you go to the games, you get a greater appreciation for the lack of energy in these buildings over that year, and how the players had to get up each and every game, right? You guys as former players, you understand like how you feed off the energy of a crowd in a building, and I think you get a better appreciation for that lacking the entire year, how those kids were able to get themselves up game in and game out to remain, unbeaten all the way to where they did. And so, I think that's, that aside, I think that's what I just took from it, was just what a weird year this whole thing was. Like, and I've got this baseball game today, and Washington State lifted their mask mandate if you've been vaccinated down here. So their stadium is actually, they're allowing X amount of people in for COVID. So their baseball stadium is going to be almost full today and tomorrow. And so I hope, somebody mentioned earlier that we hope by the fall we're back to normal and fans are in there. I hope, fingers crossed, right, that this thing continues to move in the right direction, and we can not take for granted anymore the energy that comes in those buildings.
Yeah, I had a chance to call games that first weekend of the NCAA tournament, and it was interesting. It was unique because I called them at Butler Fieldhouse, and they were watching the mask mandate pretty closely with security personnel, and they would point people out, and you would be kind of shunned if you weren't wearing your mask properly. So I'm looking forward to getting back to as close to normal as possible. Now, Richard, I know you didn't travel to the tournament, but where were you watching the Final Four, and what was your reaction when Jalen Suggs hit that shot? Oh, you're on mute still.
I think there's a video of it. Kyle Bankhead, who we played with, came to Spokane to watch the games with us, and so I think we had Zach Gord over, and his wife, Tony Hazel, who we're friends with as well. So we had a decent group, everybody vaccinated. It was a lot of fun, and we watched both games. But I mean,
my invite must have gotten lost in the mail. That's what I'm saying.
My phone was not working at the time.
I had this weird. I got a new phone and stuff. It was crazy. So
that's the excuse. I love it.
No, all I remember is I'm sitting on the couch next to Zach, and he gets the ball, and he's going up the court, and he lets it go, and just the room explodes. And next thing I know, I see my wife jumping into Kyle Bankhead's arms with her hand up in the air. Everyone's yelling. It was unbelievable. So let's just say we stayed up pretty late, reminiscing and celebrating it with some good beverages. It was. I mean, that's an all-time moment for college basketball, but, Gonzaga's been fortunate to have a few of these, but I don't think anything compares to that one. That was, that's something you'll remember forever. And what a moment for the kid too, for Jalen. I think he did it right all year long, was a huge reason why they were even in that position. So to see him have that moment was pretty cool. And then obviously his teammates, I mean, it was pretty epic all the way around.
Yeah, it was an unbelievable game, an unbelievable finish. I was sitting there in my living room with all my family, and Jacob, who's now 9, he was 8 at the time. We were sitting next to each other, and when he hit that shot, we both yelled as loud as humanly possible. I think we woke our neighbors up if they weren't watching the game from a couple doors down. We live up north where there's some space. But we high-fived as hard as I could. I thought I broke his hand as hard as I high-fived him. And my wife said she hasn't seen me run as fast as I did after we high-fived and he hit that game winner. I made like a lap around our house just screaming. Our little one, who's almost 2.5, 3, she started crying because I yelled so loud that night. But it was an unbelievable game, a tremendous finish. Chauncey, you've called games for years. Or excuse me, you've produced games for years for KHQ and the regional broadcasts. Do you ever remember a finish that can compare to that game?
No. I mean, even just seeing a finish like that, there's nothing to compare to, especially off the top of the head, right? We've had some moments, and that's why I was gonna ask you this, because one of the things too that was tweeted out was his team USA, and I forget the guy's name, apologies. His coach says we used to practice that shot and he will make it 4 out of 5 times. So I'm going to ask you, how far out do you, back in the days when you were doing those in college and then in the NBA, how far out do you practice those in the game situations, those in the game shots? How far out would you extend working on that shot?
Yeah, that's funny. You mentioned that. Go ahead, Richard.
I just said 6 feet for me. That was it.
Yeah, no, that's funny you mentioned. Yeah. That's funny you mentioned that tweet, Chauncey, because that's Coach Showalter from USA Basketball. And I remember seeing that tweet. He's a great guy, and Jalen did play for him. But, that's one of those things that I think as a kid, you always kind of mentally in the back of your head dream about and you prepare for, and you'll practice at some point in the gym when you're alone or with a couple buddies, like counting down 3, 2, 1, shoot that half quarter. But Gonzaga and Coach Few have always shot that half court shot at the end of every shoot around, just for the sake of muscle memory. If you get that opportunity at some point later that night, you've at least shot a half court shot. So I think that's kind of ingrained, at least physically and mentally, that it might be there. But then there's a couple occasions throughout the course of the season that you will practice on situational stuff where, hey, if the other team scores, we're not going to call a timeout, we're going to go. And so, as most good and great coaches have touched on that at some point throughout the season, and I think that was a tremendous job by Coach Few not to call a timeout. Hey, Greg, with your drive down to Pullman today to call baseball, you probably got lots of things on your mind. How much preparation do you do for baseball games as opposed to basketball games, knowing that you know the Gonzaga program as well as you do when you and I and Richard call the games with Chauncey producing?
Yeah, a lot more, Dan. Obviously, baseball moves so slowly, and obviously, I mean, there's a math equation. There's so many more players, first and foremost, but also there's just a lot more time to fill. Basketball is so fast moving. It's up and down. Baskets are scored. Richard usually takes up all the free time we have, so it doesn't leave much. Rap. So baseball is just different that way. You have to tell stories, and you have to breathe. And if you think I say a lot of foolish things in basketball, you should listen to me do baseball. So it's just different like that. I'm a storyteller, so I kind of love doing baseball. And the thing about the Pac-12 when you're doing games, it doesn't matter who the teams are. Most teams have, if not a future MLB or at least a AAA player that you get to watch play in these games. So it's tremendous baseball, and I love it. It's been a lot of fun. And gets me extra games, keeps me doing some work here in April and May. So yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
Richard, we had we both had the opportunity to play for Tommy Lloyd under Coach Few when he was really kind of cutting his teeth as a coach, and now he takes over the reins of traditionally one of the best programs on the West Coast and also the country in Arizona. Were you surprised by that, and how excited are you for him?
I mean, I think everyone was a little bit surprised. I mean, Arizona, that brand, I think the circumstances were ideal in a way, but, Tommy's ready in my opinion, Tommy's ready for that. I think Tommy's been deserving for a while. And the only reason, you might have been surprised is just his lack of head coaching experience. But, I'll be honest, I think these, programs and athletic departments generally, you see it at the professional level too. You just keep going back to the same well. I think, I'd be more inclined to look for fresh talent, as it were. And I think Tommy's exactly that. He's had some early success with some recruiting and getting guys to come over, whether it be transfer market or overseas already. And he's got a good recruit out of his backyard. So, I can't recall. I don't think that their sanctions have come out yet officially, but I think my impression is the expectations are, though, they won't be quite as bad as maybe folks anticipated, maybe even a few months ago. But I couldn't be happy for Tommy. I know everybody here feels the same way. I think he's always done it the right way. As a former player, I think a lot of us that are still here in Spokane, or quite frankly, even outside of Spokane, Tommy for a lot of us was that primary point of contact, kind of with the program, and well, one of those guys you could reach out to just to see how things were going. And we've got a unique dynamic in that we're there more frequently than most. But Tommy's going to be missed. Certainly they're going to be okay, but it's not as if you replace a guy like Tommy Lloyd from one day to the next.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I'm excited for him. I think he's going to do great things at Arizona. It will be interesting to see those sanctions and how that might impact them, whether it's scholarships, whether it's more postseason bans. But Tommy will set a foundation and get that program back to the elite on the West Coast. But we talked about the additions of the players, and we talked about the subtraction of Tommy Lloyd. Well, on the coaching side, looks like B. Mike's going to continue to move up a chair, I would imagine, and kind of fill that elder statesman role as an assistant coach. But one of our good friends, Stephen Gentry, a.k.a. Shaggy, is kind of coming back to Spokane, and he's going to be a assistant coach. Shaggy was a part of the program when you and I were roommates back in college. At 222 East Sharp. We were at unofficial casino just off the Gonzaga campus. Do you have any gambling poker story, not gambling, but poker stories of Shaggy that might kind of reintroduce him to the Gonzaga community?
No, I don't remember him playing poker that as much as everybody else. I mean, it became a kind of an epidemic. I remember my first exposure to poker was through coming to GU, and I really liked it. But then all of a sudden, when we played twice a week, and I remember walking into the apartment one night. I probably went to get food, and there's like 30 people in our apartment, and I recognized 5 of them. And you've got guys wearing glasses and hoodies. I'm like, what are we doing? I mean, I don't think I've hardly played poker since. But no, I mean, Shaggy was. He and I were close. We redshirted together. And he, for all intents and purposes, kind of lived with us half the time.
Yeah.
He hasn't been there since the beginning, but pretty close to the beginning of this run. And he's done a really nice job of staying in touch with a lot of us that played with him, but also obviously Mark Few and Brian. So he's a great addition. He knows he's going to step in and know what Mark wants.
Yeah.
And how this program runs and what this program's about and the kind of guys that they want, in the program. So I think he's a great addition.
Yeah, those 222 East Sharp, that was the address now for Corkery Apartments. We had some epic poker nights, and I remember you used to skip out on those fairly frequently. The best poker players was probably, at least my senior year when we hosted them, were Blake Stepp, and then Bankhead was pretty good. I was kind of on a roller coaster with my bankroll with the poker because I'd be hit or miss. I would go all in way too often, and I do remember you were kind of in some days, out some days.
Look, while you were on that roller coaster, I was at a first name basis with the bartender Jack and Dan's. I had plenty of fun. Don't worry, that was okay.
Those are great stories. So off-season plans are huge. For everybody at the college level. I want to get your three's take on what your off-season plans are before I ask Richard's plans on what he thinks Coach Few's off-season plans will be. So, Chauncey, what are your off-season plans and how do you prepare to get yourself a more prepared as a producer for next season?
Well, the thing is, this was we did so few games together this year that I never even felt like I had an on season, keeping it real as far as my standpoint from getting in the rhythm as a producer. And so, like I saying, I'm just praying that we get back to a healthy stance because that's a good look for the country. If we can get back to doing more games, nothing else gets canceled or postponed in the fall. And just like I produce outside of Gonzaga as well, things for the Pac-12 network. And those things, you get those reps in other sports to start getting ready. And then also in the meantime, always keeping my ear to the street, so to speak, on what's going on in the program, because it's going to be interesting what happens in the practices this summer with the Zags. When you see, of course, you saw last year, even in the beginning of the year, it doesn't matter who's starting, but it's just as you grow through this summer, it's going to be so challenging. It's going to be so competitive that once that gets rolling, I'm hoping that we get our slew of games. You know what I mean? Next year, again, when you guys ask, what are you looking forward to most? It's going to be that game that we get. That's going to be an 80-point game. But hey, I can't wait for that one. Don't take it for granted.
Yeah, we get the short end of the stick with games. I saw Coach Few a week or so ago, and he asked, hey, what's your broadcasting outlook for next year? I said, Coach, it's stinking the middle of May. I have no clue what games I'm being offered. I said, hopefully our regional crew gets as many as possible. But when you look at how they schedule, ESPN and now CBS Sports and even national CBS gets a lot of those good games. And I don't think what people understand and realize is we get the scraps. We get the table scraps for those 45-point blowouts. And then you Chauncey, have to keep us on task, and Greg tries to wander us off path, and Richard and I keep us back on the straight and narrow to talk about the game at hand and the players. But
do you want to roll that bus back over, Greg, or was that enough?
No, I'm just setting it up so that he can kind of obliterate any comment that I just made.
Yep, here it comes.
So,
I'm
Greg,
just trying to fit in, man. I'm just trying to fit in.
So, Greg, I will give you the platform. What are your off-season plans on how to prepare for next year?
Well, honestly, Dan, like I do so many different things in a year. So this is my final baseball series, and then I hope to let the beard grow and let the hair grow. And I'm headed to Alaska on Monday on a fishing lodge up there. So I hope to spend 5 or 6 weeks up there this summer. And then I have my fly fishing show that airs on Discovery Channel that, we're back shooting shows. So I'm traveling around shooting that thing. So, and then, I'll probably my biggest preparation for doing games next fall will be the days that I get to spend with Coach Few fishing, which will be, quite often this summer. So, I've already been with him a few times fishing. So I've been able to pepper him with some questions and things like that. So that's, it's good to get away. And I've probably kind of learned that from him. He's the master at that. He's the master at being able to compartmentalize his life and to get away from things. And I think that's why, he still looks like he's 45 years old and he's just kind of figured that out. He's got a really good life. So I don't know, I won't do much as far as preparation. I'll read all the blogs. It just seems like there's a lot of people out there these days doing all our research for us.
So what blogs are you reading?
Well, or what not blogs or whatever, I get on Twitter, and I read all of that stuff. I wouldn't say it's blogs. I don't really read blogs, I guess. Most people are probably, impressed that I know how to read, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of what my summer will look like. Nothing impressive. I do hope that we get our normal slate of games. And I would like to say that, when the games are on ESPN and CBS Sports and we lose a game here and there, like that's a reflection of where the program is today. So, I am not hurt by that. That's great. These are all people that we care about, and this thing is elevated to a point. However, the only time Gonzaga makes money on their broadcasts is when we do the games. So there is financial incentive for us to be doing some games. So I don't ever see it going completely away. And, let's hope it doesn't. Even if it's 40 points, I've been doing them long enough. This was my 20th season. Back in the day, we did the St. Mary's games. We did, there's so many, the big games, the UW series we did all the time. I remember going to Illinois and like we did all the big games. And so, I had my day in the sun with that. And now we just get to do what we get to do and stay part of it the way at the level that we can. And, after 20 years, it's fine with me. There's been a lot of success.
Yeah. With that comment of, Gonzaga making money on our production games, I would love for KHQ to build the four of us as a brand in Spokane. That would be fun. The four of us doing commercials, kind of chopping it up just like we're doing right now. I mean, you look at NBA markets, their broadcasters are doing different goofy things, whether it's for, a sandwich shop or Miller Paint or whatnot. If there's a marketing agency in Spokane, come up with some ideas for the four of us, right?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm in. I don't know. Like, can they get all of our heads on one big banner? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if the TV screens are wide enough, but that would be great. That would be great.
Well, maybe the four of us need to kind of put our brain power together and figure that one out and see if something can happen. But how about you, Richard? I know you're busy with your commercial real estate, work, but how do you stay in touch with the program as far as preparing for the upcoming seasons?
I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, not much outside of reading, kind of like what Greg was mentioning, just keeping up on what's out there publicly. I mean, until they get back on campus in the fall, and last year we couldn't even go to a practice. I'm not a big fan of shoot-arounds, but you couldn't even do that.
What? You're not?
So I can't think of anything that's more of a waste of time. But that's just my take, Chauncey. We can disagree on that, okay?
Yeah, let's be real.
So, but the thing no one talks about, because they're so good now, is every year the turnover that they're experiencing, and then also the amount of the guys who do come back that have to kind of assimilate to a whole new role. You really you have to spend the time to understand who these kids are, what they did, whether it be at a previous school, in high school, what they did over the summer. And I do think there's a lot of value in going to watch them practice in the fall and then before the season starts. So I'll do that as we get closer, and but yeah, this summer it's really just work, my real job, as it were, and then spend a lot of time with the family. We got a couple of fun trips planned, and our twins are 5 now, and it's starting to get a little bit easier and a little bit more fun on a regular basis. So just try to embrace that. That kind of, our kids are starting to get into sports. Dan, you know all about this. Chauncey, you too. Well, all of you guys do. We're slowly starting to see our weekends get eaten up a little bit. So it's a lot of fun, but it's just another layer of kind of hecticness in life.
Sure. So with your twins being 5 years old now, I can imagine they've just learned to ride a bike or they're getting close. If I were to take a trip up to the South Hill, will I catch Richard Fox, the 7-footer, on a bike ride around Manitou Park?
No,
I've
done some light research. Apparently, bikes that fit me are hard to find, and they're
How about a
expensive.
unicycle, Richard? That would be fantastic.
I think you got to play to your strengths. I'm good at sports and that kind of thing. My wife's got a nice bike that she can, ride with the kids. So, if they want to go around in a scooter, I can kind of follow them along the neighborhood. But Zach Gord tells me he's got a bike, an extra bike that would work. I just haven't seen it yet. So we'll see.
I got to see this.
Yeah.
You got to take a picture of you on this bike with the helmet.
Well,
okay.
Hey.
If it happens, I will send it, I promise. And I will fully expect to see it on the broadcast.
Okay, I would love that. With you on a bike is one thing, but I will say this before I'll share a story with you real quick before I ask you the final question before I let you go. About a year ago, I'm driving out of my neighborhood, and Rob Sacre, who you guys all know well, he lives about a mile away. I'm pulling out of my neighborhood onto Little Spokane Drive in North Spokane. Rob Sacre, the 7-footer, is riding a horse. I felt so bad for the horse.
I saw pictures of that.
Yeah, I saw that too. That's pretty cool.
Different guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let me ask you this really quick. We'll go rapid fire. So I would imagine Gonzaga is the preseason number 1. Is it Final Four or bust again this year where people are disappointed? Or what are you guys looking for with this upcoming season? We'll go quickly. Richard, Chauncey, and then Greg.
Yeah, I'm sure Mark drives him crazy, but that's what happens. That's going to be the narrative next year. Timmy might be the consensus preseason player of the year. They're going to be that good. So yeah, it's going to be, can they get to the Final Four? And if they don't, people are certainly going to look at it like it's been a letdown.
I think the last couple of years you've seen it be more embraced. I know you say it drives you crazy, but seeing in ice, you're closer, so you can say if it does or doesn't. But it seems like more, it's like, okay, we're the 100 now, and we'll take that on. These expectations are there, even though they're early. Let's go out there and do this, prove it. Try to win this thing early on and have that thought. You've heard him say, hey, it's the Natty. Like early on, it was Jalen Stock, the Natty. We go into the Natty. So this year, dang, it's just so bad that the fans got to miss seeing that kid, man. It's just watching that motor go. But anyways, yes, expectations, Final Four, bust.
Yeah, obviously that's where the program is, and when you get the the number 1 recruit in the country, and what is it, number 8 and number 30 or whatever it is, you have to go there. But I got to put the brakes on a little bit. You got to remember who they just lost: Suggs, Ayayi, Kispert. And it's the guards that get you to a Final Four in the NC2A tournament. So the expectations, yes, the Final Four, but I gotta see them play together as a unit before I'm ready to start making predictions.
I just want to say, I think
Come
I bet
on.
any amount of money that after the first practice Greg goes to, next year you're going to send a text, this is the best team he's ever had.
Yes.
Guarantee.
You can count on that. You can absolutely count on it. But we just like you gotta tip the cap to the guys that just left this program. Like those three dudes were, geez, good.
They were pretty impressive. So I will agree with that. We will do this again once Greg gets back from the great wilderness that is Alaska and the Seasons on the Fly Lodge. So for Fox, I appreciate your insight. Chauncey, your perspective is always great. And Greg, your hair looks amazing. So thank you guys for joining the Bulldog broadcast. We'll catch you guys really soon. Thanks again.
Best investment I've ever made.